The head of the Texas Republican Party is flipping out after the Supreme Court declined to hear Attorney General Ken Paxton's ridiculous lawsuit to overturn the election results. So now this is Texas Republican Chairman Allen West. Y'all know Allen West, who issued a statement recently saying that perhaps it is time for, quote, law-abiding states to band together and form a union of states that will abide by the Constitution, which would ironically be both against the law and against the Constitution. Well done. Nailed it. And it's, of course, because it would be treason. I don't know if they realize that seceding from the entire United States would make you no longer an American patriot. I'm just saying, like, leaving the country that you say you love doesn't really show the love for that country. It doesn't make any sense. But anyway, he continues. The Supreme Court has decreed that a state can take what he calls unconstitutional actions to violate its own election law. Really? Is there any proof of that? They violated their own election. They keep saying these things, but they can't provide any sort of evidence to back them up. But he says this. He says, the decision establishes a precedent that says states can violate the U.S. Constitution and not be held accountable. Accountable by who? What? By Texas? I'm sorry, is Texas the arbiter of what Michigan does? I don't think so. I'm not having some Texan boss me around. No. You control the stuff in Texas when it comes to voting. We control our own elections up here. And we actually do it in a way that lets more people vote. A sad day for you. But he says this decision will have far-reaching ramifications for the future of our constitutional republic. And then went on to say that the Texas GOP will always stand for the Constitution and the rule of law when others don't. We stand for the rule of law, which is why we are going to break the law and leave this country. Ugh. Again, doesn't make sense. Are you serious? So now here's the thing. So he tried this entire argument from Ken Paxton, was the Attorney General of Texas who filed this lawsuit against these other four states, these other battleground states, is that somehow these states violated the 14th Amendment, the Equal Protection Clause, by changing, in the face of a pandemic, some of their election rules, which, again, states administer their own elections, so they're allowed to do that. They're allowed to change the rules based on, the situation. And so, for example, some states said, okay, we're going to allow for more mail-in ballots. We're going to allow for some ballot harvesting to go on in order to make it easier for people to vote. We're going to put up these ballot, drop-off boxes so that people don't have to gather at the polling stations and possibly spread coronavirus. We're going to make voting a little bit easier, a little bit better for people, especially those who are at risk. No, that makes all the sense in the world. But Texas looks at it and says, oh, no, you don't. You just made voting easier. And I'm speaking more of like Texas Republicans, okay? Texas Republicans and Republicans all over said, how dare you make voting easier? We want voting to be harder. We have been trying for decades to make it harder for people to vote, because when more people vote, we tend to lose. And so, okay, well, now they're super, super upset that we've actually, in some states, at least temporarily, made it easier to vote. And so that's why the lawsuit. It makes sense, okay? And so the thing is, if the Supreme Court had taken up this case, it would actually be a complete mess. It could lead to states suing each other, the precedent that it would set, over ridiculous things, okay? So think about this, right? If California thinks that Texas, for example, or Alabama has like an advantage over them now, okay, and thinks, well, there's a precedent now in the court that says that if there's an advantage that another state has, we can take them to court because we feel that they have violated the 14th Amendment, the Equal Protection Clause. And so now we're going to sue the shit out of Alabama for, I don't know, wages or regulation, whatever they want, essentially. It's almost carte blanche, and it would create just a massive run, like states suing each other over ridiculous things, and it would be never ending. The court says, we don't want that. We are not interested in having this happen because it would be an absolute fucking mess. And so we're just not going to take this up, especially for Donald Trump. That's it. And so there you go. That the problem here is that you had 18 states, over 100 plus Republican officials in Congress, congressional Republicans, that backed this lawsuit. Not because they actually believe in it, but I think it's because they mostly didn't want to get called out by Donald Trump, because he understand this guy runs the Republican Party now. It is the party of Donald Trump. And understandably so, because you've got 90% of Republicans, over 90%, that have a favorable view of Donald Trump. They love the guy. And so what he says on Twitter matters a lot. And so, unfortunately, if you're a Republican politician, you're kind of stuck between a rock and the hard place. Not that I feel bad for them at all, because they're Republicans. But they're kind of stuck like, okay, I really don't want Donald Trump to, destroy the norms of the Republic, but I also don't want to get trashed on Twitter and then never win an election again. And so that's the situation that they're in. And it's, again, why I don't really feel bad for them at all. And so what's even more disturbing now is not only how, like I said, Texas wants to take their ball and go home, or, make themselves their own little country, because it can't dictate what some of the other states can do. But also how much the secession talk is actually going through the Republican Party. In fact, there was last week, Rush Limbaugh was talking about how much, the red states and blue states really don't get along, and how secession might be inevitable. In fact, I want to play that video for you. Take a listen.
I thought you were asking me something else when you said, well, can we win? I meant, I thought you meant, can we win the culture? Can we dominate the culture? I actually think, and I've referenced this, I've alluded to this a couple of times, because I've seen others allude to this. I actually think that we're trending toward secession. I see more and more people asking, what in the world do we have in common with the people who live in, say, New York? What is there that makes us believe that there is enough of us there to even have a chance at winning New York, especially if you're talking about votes? I see a lot of bloggers, I can't think of names right now, a lot of bloggers have written extensively about how distant and separated and how much more separated our culture is becoming politically, and that it can't go on this way. There cannot be a peaceful coexistence of two completely different theories of life, theories of government, theories of how we manage our affairs. We can't be in this dire a conflict without something giving somewhere along the way. And so I know that there is a sizable and growing sentiment for people who believe that that is where we're headed, whether we want to or not. Whether we want to go there or not. I myself haven't made up my mind. So I still haven't given up the idea that we are the majority and that all we have to do is find a way to unite and win. And our problem is the fact that there are just so many rhinos, so many Republicans in the Washington establishment who'll do anything to maintain their membership in the establishment because of the perks and the opportunities that are presented for their kids and so forth.
All right, so that's Rush Limbaugh. I just wanted to note how I think it's fucking hilarious that Rush Limbaugh's like, I'm an anti-establishment Republican. No, you're not. You suckle at the teat of the establishment day in, day out. But look, ridiculous points by Limbaugh aside. Are we really that different? No. Okay. Are there differences? Yes. But generally, most Americans want to tax corporations. Okay. Don't want too much government power, but also want the government to solve regular problems to help people in poverty. Most Americans like programs like Social Security and Medicare. Americans want higher wages. So I don't know who you're talking on behalf of, Rush Limbaugh. Maybe it's your tiny fucking audience. Maybe it's the audience, that is mainly made up of like incredibly partisan boomers, right? And not to say all boomers are wrong or bad, right? Not all boomers, all right? But there are that's the majority of people who listen to him, though. His audience, like, you got to look at the demographics. They're definitely 65 or older, the majority of. And so that's why I'm saying that. But these people are a fringe minority that are radicalized on the right. They do not represent average Americans who actually policy-wise are pretty progressive, but understandably they don't know it. Why? Why don't they know they're progressive? Why don't they identify with what's considered to be far left in this country? Why do they continue to call themselves like centrist or conservative or whatever? It's because the Overton window has been shifted and words don't mean anything anymore. And so that's like a bigger, kind of like a meta issue, right? But when you go down, and I've seen consistent polls on this, and I've talked to quite a bit of people, quite a few people. I've seen, Bernie Sanders get a room full of Trump voters clap for Medicare for all. Understand that we actually, for policy-wise, have a lot in common. We all kind of want the same things. We want health care. We want higher wages. We want a good standard of living. And we're okay with taxing wealthy people in order to do so. Okay? And so understand that that's kind of what binds us as Americans, is some of those similar beliefs. And look, you could go, and this is why they call them wedge issues, by the way. Republicans are masters at using those wedge issues to divide Americans among one or two lines. And you've got people who are single issue voters. You've got people who are, uneducated voters as far as when it comes to the issues, right? Again, and you have people that don't necessarily understand what, like, the Democratic Party or progressives, I should say, more of, actually stand for. And you've got people like Rush Limbaugh that have been pushing this ridiculously partisan framing for decades, that have been really pushing these divisions where none really exist. Okay? Just constant streams of just bullshit, social wedge issues. And so that's the real problem. Okay? That's the real problem. And so, yes, who helped make some of these divisions that he is now bemoaning? Rush Limbaugh. It's completely ironic when you look at it. But that said, Rush Limbaugh isn't the only one who's been talking about this secession, right? You also had a Texas state lawmaker saying that he was planning to propose a referendum for the state to secede from the United States. This is State Representative Kyle Biederman, who wrote, "The federal government is out of control. It does not represent the values of Texans. That's why I'm committing to file legislation this session that will allow a referendum to give Texans a vote for the state of Texas to reassert his status as an independent nation." Good luck with that. I doubt it's going to pass. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.